Laid off, single mom, no roadmap. Instead of playing it safe, Luann Horriban built something new, a business, a mission, and a life that lit her up. Her story is about courage and clarity and about what can happen when you stop chasing security and start following your spark.
Live from the Never Too Late stage in sunny Sarasota, Florida, it's the Never Too Late Show! Tonight's guest proves it's never too late to reinvent yourself and do what you love. And now, helping women turn what now into watch this, here's your host, Teresa Rowena.
Today's guest is a woman who turned one of the hardest moments of her life into the most powerful one. After being laid off from her middle management job in healthcare and finding herself a single mom, well, Luann Horriban could have gone back to what she knew and played it safe, but she didn't. Instead, she built something new, a business, a mission, a life that lights her up. And now she helps others do the same. Join me in welcoming Luann Horriban.
Really excited to be here, Teresa. Thank you so much.
I'm tickled pink. I love that you reached out to me on LinkedIn. I love your message. I love what you're about. And I think it's absolutely perfect for what our listening audience all over the world are interested in. And that is about women over 50 who are looking for inspiration, change, courage, something that it might help them take that next step. Because you certainly did. You've lived a wonderful experience of that.
Yes, I have changed my direction a few times, actually. And I think it has inspired me so much that that's actually what I like to help people do, is change that direction, because it totally is possible.
It's so perfect because going through it, experiencing it, I have myself experienced it. So I know what you're talking about whenever you say that. It's a beautiful thing to be in a place where you can relate to where someone is and help them lead the way. Exceptional experience. And you've done that a lot of times, but I want to go back to where you got started. I find this fascinating. I actually live in Alberta, Canada right now. Is that right?
Yes, I'm in Calgary, Alberta.
And you grew up on a farm.
Yes, I did.
I know you've got great stories from that. So could you tell me something about what it was like living on a farm and how that impacted your life?
It had a huge impact on my life because the way I was raised in the farm is a lot of the beliefs and habits that I learned, that I used in the early part of my life to create my own success. And my parents were very diligent about teaching us how to manage and how to be resourceful. So I was pretty achievement oriented even before I went to school. I did things that probably kids do now when they're much older, but before I went to school, I could actually stand on the stool and like make lunch for all of our hired men and do other things like help my dad type of things, work with vehicles and things like that. So that was actually a norm to me. And so when I went to school, it was a big adjustment, recognizing that that wasn't exactly the experience that everyone had, but that actually carried with me throughout my life.
So whenever you were a child and you went to school and you confronted the way the world was there, which was so different than the world that you grew up, can you remember a particular time that you walked in and something happened and you were like, whoa, where am I? Can you remember that?
Oh, I totally remember it. I remember the first day of school, I was just dazed because I remember going home to my mom and saying, we read books, we went to gym, we went to recess, and we had lunch. And I said, is there more to this? Because I was used to being really active and working as a kid. We did actually the chores. I was able to like work with the lawn, like mow the lawn. I mean, I could do all kinds of things. And I thought, is this a normal day? Is this what this is going to be like? Because I don't know about this. And I was learning about the process of, what would you say, the academic learning type of thing. That was an experience throughout my life, but it continued because I had an appetite for achievement. So I really embrace things, learn things quickly. And that meant that I also quickly felt I needed to do more. I grew up constantly kind of having that urge to do more. It's kind of like telling someone to sit in a chair. Like, you just can't sit in a chair. If you've got that energy, you just want to do something with it. But I didn't really recognize the depth of that inner programming, I guess I'm going to call it, until I was in my early adulthood, because it helped me in lots of ways, because it helped me really establish and get going in my career and help me set up a different life in the city. So that was all good. And then when I started going into my roles at work, that very same thing came up. I would quickly achieve what I wanted to achieve, and I was looking for more.
Your childhood really shaped your leadership and just your life as you move forward. There's a saying that childhood shapes the leadership skills. What was your birth order? Did you have younger or older brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have one older brother, and I was the middle one, and I had two younger sisters.
That's interesting. So,
Yeah.
as the middle child, did you find yourself ever in leadership roles with your siblings?
I think I was, because there's 4 years between myself and my older brother. And then there's 1 year between my next sister, and then my youngest sister was actually 4 years younger. So I was kind of the oldest of the girls type of thing.
You really probably took a leadership role with your younger sisters.
I was a bit of the go-to person for things in the house. As part of the farm, because we had a mixed farm, I also helped my dad recognize I wasn't as oriented towards animals as my other two sisters were.
Ah, you were more interested in getting the job done.
Well, I was more interested in the home kinds of things, the actual animals. I just didn't like. My two sisters are really skilled with animals. And as my grandfather was, I think they inherited that, but I didn't.
Well, I think it's great to like recognize where your spark is,
Oh,
what
yes.
attracts you. And it wasn't the animals, which it was for your sisters, but not for you.
Yes.
What was your spark? What were you
Well,
like? Ooh, I want to do that.
there's just one thing here. What part of this learning was that I recognized the animals were just not my thing. But my dad, all due respect, really wanted us to learn everything. And so it took a few years of, I would say, intense communication
Putting it nicely.
to convey that this was really not my thing. I was going to be in the training program forever. And there were other things that I could go into that I would really like to help in other ways. Creating the home environment, I really loved that. And all the things that we could do to create a nice, good home environment, because it was a lot of work. And I really liked the fact that when people came home, I wanted it to be comfortable and have things that they like, that relaxation, kind of like I have always thought your home is your haven, right? And I loved that aspect. And I could do chores, but the animals we just didn't click.
I got it. Well, it's like there's an old saying, ride the horse in the direction it's going.
Right. My grandfather and my sisters, literally, they're horse whisperers. I am not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I really admire in people, which is another reason why I recognize we can always fulfill our dreams, is because everyone has really deep talents. Those deep talents create things beyond our understanding.
I think it's so impactful. I think there's a lot to be learned, especially for women who are looking for inspiration, to look at their childhood and what did inspire them. Because I feel like that there's this spark that it connects with our values in a way, and those don't change. So they follow us through life. There might be a different expression of it. You might want to do it a different way, but that driving force that's underneath there, to know what that is very, very useful.
Yes. And as I look back and I think about my career path, and I went into healthcare because I recognized I liked helping people. And I also recognized once I was there that I wanted to help people in a different way. There was another way that I could help people.
Beautiful.
And it was that constant inner drive within me which I recognized when I was in my home environment, in my childhood home environment. That's what I love to do. I like to create the home. I like to do things for people, kind of thing.
And you're even doing it in your work now in a different way.
Yes.
So you got let go, I think was the word you
Yes.
used.
Yes.
And you were bringing your best self and you got let go. Is that what
Mm.
happened?
Yes. But the first time that happened, I was really completely puzzled, gobsmacked.
Yeah.
I really had a hard time understanding it. And I recognized that it was organizational change. And again, from this achievement kind of oriented background, I thought achievement kind of trumped organizational change. Like I just had that feeling that if you were doing really well in your role, and I was getting really good feedback, I didn't doubt my capacity in my role, but I really, really was shocked. And it took me a little while to kind of put that together, that it is possible that organizations can change. It is possible that I can just be the way I came to terms with it. It's possible that when one door closes, another one definitely does open. And it was really the universe telling me it was time for me to move, because I had an inner urge to
Mm.
help people at a different level. However, I also really liked that role. And to be honest, if I hadn't received that package, I'm not sure I would have left that role.
What was your role at
I
that
was
point?
in middle management and administration in healthcare, and I really loved it anyway. So it forced me to like think, this is a path change. So how do I get into work that is more of what I like? But so that's when I started coaching, and I was the 17th person to become a coach in Canada.
Well, let me ask you, was there a defining moment? Did something happen whenever it was like, okay, this is it? Up with which I will not put. This is it. I'm going to make this change. Was there like a what I call the career pivot story?
Hmm.
Like I was this way and then this happened and then I was this.
Yes, I think that it was initiated with my package. And then as I looked at options, it's interesting because I would have had options to go back into the field in a different capacity. When I considered it, I literally had a knot in my stomach. I couldn't ignore it. Even if I just thought, oh, well, I'll just do this temporarily, that knot would come back to my stomach. So I thought,
Mm.
okay, I need to change. And I had thought about, I really wanted to do more of this work because I was kind of in between. I took temporary work for a little bit, and I just went to school, did all the steps to set up my own consulting.
Was there this moment that you went, okay, that's it? I'm going to be a coach, a consultant?
I didn't recognize I was going to be an entrepreneur. That was another learning step.
That was a surprise, huh?
It was. I'd always thought I would be in a managerial role, like in an organization. I guess my inner self, that's my spidey sense, literally revolted every time I went to go into a job. Like I was fighting the river. I cannot fight the universe. It doesn't work. And I wanted to do it. So I started actually just talking with people. And the more I talked with people, I thought, there's no way that that is my fulfilling path. It just helped me to see what was within myself that it was hard to see.
It sounds like you had to let go of who you were, that
I
you
did.
had been this way. And now this realization brought on by this catastrophic event in your life of being let go that slapped you awake.
Yes, it did. And I think it was as well, it was because everything changed all at once. Like my personal life completely changed. I became a single mom, and that changed in many different things.
This is true for a lot of people, particularly women, that
Mhm.
when this thing grips us, this discontent, like you're saying, that
Yeah.
like internal rebellion, that it usually happens around these kinds of life-changing events. It could be facing layoff, it could be divorce,
Yes.
it could be caring for elderly parents or a death of a parent, a move. There's usually this upheaval of some
Yes.
sort. On the surface feels like bad news, but
Mhm.
then upon digging a little deeper, we find ourselves a renewing of ourselves where we can take everything we know and repackage it in a way that is more
Mhm.
us.
I would say for myself, and I'm not sure that I really like this term, but it was how I felt. It was wake up call,
Which then
which
leads us to the actual reinvention process. So now
Mhm.
you've gone through this. You have this, God bless your folks for like preparing you in the way that you were
Mhm.
to step into a life so equipped,
Yeah.
so capable. But then you even come up against it and find all your winning formula, what had worked for you all your life, suddenly was bankrupt. It was not getting you to where you really in your life wanted to be. It
Mhm.
wasn't satisfying. And so now you come to the crossroads and you're saying
Yeah.
no, you're looking that midlife reinvention in the face and saying, I'm doing it. And now you're stepping into that.
The more that I kind of, as I call it, dug deep within myself, my interpretation of how I was raised as a child was very achievement oriented. And our environment was also very grounded. And I think that's how I could grasp the achievement was because I was in a very grounded environment. And what I learned as I moved forward and sort of focused on my achievement versus my own grounding, that's where I really felt like I was faltering. I was really struggling. And it's because I had not recognized there's two sides to that coin. It's not a one-sided coin. It's actually the grounding and my inner strength that allows me to present myself in the outer world. It kind of gone backwards a little bit for me.
This is precious right here
Yeah.
because I think there's probably a lot of our listeners or viewers are saying, well, I didn't grow up on a farm or I didn't have a stable childhood. Nobody was grounding me. That's probably true for more people than not. So, how did you get there? How did you get to that self grounding? First, I want to define grounding. What do you mean when you say grounded?
I think grounded is recognizing my own inner strength. It's
Mm.
not as much focusing on my outer world without my inner world. And I would say this actually says like, no matter what my background is, because I was fortunate to have a good family, I had a lot of good concepts that helped me start. And that all did not work. It reached a point where it was good for that time frame. And then I needed to create my own.
Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
It was my own bootstraps, yes. And so I had to recognize the part that I had not really paid as close of attention to was what I would call my inner strength. And it's like that message of what's really guiding you. It's my inner fulfillment. It was a factor, but it wasn't as much of a factor as it definitely would have benefited me earlier in the stage so that I didn't have to get to the place where absolutely everything came apart at the same time.
So many times I've talked to women about this. It's like the question comes up always. The question is how? How do I do that? How do I do that? Like I'm always interested. I think it's different for different people, but what for you was your actual process? What did you say to yourself? What did you do? What gave you access to your own inner strength?
I think my recognition that I was feeling a gap in my inner strength. I will say my external world kind of forced me to do the digging. And so my recognition of the gap within myself, I guess I have a belief that I want to do my best in my life. And I felt that I was failing that. Like I was not succeeding in that. And I thought, there's only one place that this comes from, and that's from within me, because no one else can create my life. And it was just kind of a light bulb. That's the only thing that can create that fulfillment within myself. If I was to describe it, it would be slowing down, not doing more. Instead of doing more, it's actually doing less and slowing down and allowing myself to actually be present. So I guess I would say the moment of being present and just saying, this is the only moment I have to create my next moment. I really don't have any, there's no other straws here.
Yeah.
I only have this moment. And I think, so I began to like break my moments down into this moment, be present. And the other thing that I recognize, and which is key recognition that helped me as well. So I had several things I was realigning in my life. And I had to think about what is the one thing that is going to make the difference for me. If I focus on like, I've got to do 12 things, that's going to probably make me crazy because that's not a very comforting thought. I thought I have to see what is the one thing that would have the most impact on the 12 things? That was my thought process. What is my one thing? And so when I work with that now, I call this the one big thing. What is my one big thing? And I learned to kind of have a one big thing that I can work with to move forward in the direction that I'm wanting to.
Kind of like a lighthouse that's like
Yes,
keeping you
yes.
going in the right direction. Well, let me ask you about this because I know this is a big part of what you do with your clients now. Was there a point in here where you started to realize about mindset and what you think and the
Yes.
power of that? Did you discover that for yourself?
Yes, that is what led me into coaching. Because when I felt so overwhelmed and really like I had failed and really like I did not know how I was going to go forward, one of the questions I always asked myself was, how am I thinking about this? And it's just a question that I've always asked myself. I'm not very excited about how I'm thinking about this because I'm pretty discouraged. And I thought, it's not going to ever be discouragement that gets me anywhere.
Amen, sister.
I really started thinking of the bigger picture and recognizing there is a bigger picture here. It's a fundamental knowledge that I have that nothing ever lasts forever. And it's a fundamental knowledge that I have that there always is a bigger picture. Like, what is the bigger picture here? And it was just by asking that I recognized, well, Luann, you have a whole bunch of things on your plate. Like, what's the one thing that would make a difference in all of these? And that became my focus.
You're speaking to one of probably my favorite saying, and that is velocity is a function of clarity. It's like once you get
Yes.
clear about something, then it's like, okay, now I know where I'm going, what I'm doing. It's just like all kinds of things open up whenever you have clarity about something. But when you're muddled, like you say, with 12 different things going on, it's actually a defense mechanism in nature. That's why a covey of quail, birds go in coveys and flocks because if there's a bunch of them, it's very hard to focus on one thing and nab it. That same thing applies with our thoughts. And I'm just loving how this all kind of fits together. When you have clarity also about your spark, what turns you on, what excites you, what lights you up, like your desire to create a home, either literally or even with someone in their own mind, that they could be coming home to themselves.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a really good way of expressing it, coming home to themselves. Because once I felt like I was at least on a path, so I could pursue an option without getting that horrible knot in my stomach, and literally the stress and tension that came with that, it was very hard to function in that particular mode. And so I thought, this is too much of a fight, and I know that this is not the way things roll. So I just kept looking at, so how do I fulfill, like, what is it I'm really trying to fulfill? That led me to coaching. And it totally, once I started working with mindset, I could see, whoa, I could hit a lot of points on those pages.
Oh,
I had a fair amount of work ahead of me, which was good because I thought, again, it's like that saying, the obstacle is the way. You can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. At the end of the day, that's all you can do. So I thought, okay, I can work with this. It just completely just kind of shifted my energy. And anyway, now I'm grateful for it because I can see it completely is my purpose.
I think sometimes that happens as well. Sometimes I don't think our spark, what I call spark, our desire, we don't necessarily see how the bridge between what we really love, what calls to us, what speaks to us that we would just do just because we love to do it, how that could impact or lead us to something fruitful or something that's going to make a difference or even feed our families. Like, where's the practical application? Sometimes I think people have a real difficulty in connecting those two. And I think the big part about is how you can make a difference for others. And I love your story because this is leading this whole conversation mindset. Tell us a little bit how you went from where you were in the moment of your story that we're talking about, realizing the power of your mindset, getting clarity around the direction that you wanted to go and what you needed to do. Where did the neuroscience-based transformation come into play? How did that develop?
When I was speaking of that knot in my stomach, that taught me that to really recognize that my inner sense of self is always the most truthful. That led me to understanding the concepts of coaching and the concepts of bringing out your strengths and increasing your awareness. As I was working with that, I became intrigued with the subconscious mind and understanding the mind and the difference that makes. And once I understood, for example, our subconscious mind has to answer a question. So I would practice with it, asking myself questions, and I could see how it was shifting how I felt and how I was approaching things. And I just became way more aligned So the more I dived into it, the more intrigued I became. For example, one of the examples is recognizing the power of questions, that the subconscious mind has to answer a question. Before I went to bed, I would ask myself, how can this get better for, and then I would say what I'm working on. How can this get better for this? Like, for example, how can I see an opportunity to work with this? Let's say, how can I improve my relationship with this person so that we are more in harmony? I would do this before I go to bed because your subconscious mind runs your body. It doesn't stop when you go to sleep. Only your conscious mind does. And so I would put that in my subconscious mind because it will generate and create thought processes and patterns. I also know the subconscious mind works at like 4 billion bits of information a second versus our conscious mind, which is 2,000 bits of information a second, which means that all my decisions are filtered by my beliefs. So once I became aware of that, I would recognize, so what am I believing right now? And what is making this impossible for me? And I would ask myself, what is my growth edge here? What if I wasn't afraid of something? Once I started understanding that, I thought, well, I want to know the chemistry behind this because this is way too fascinating. And I continually dive into it.
Well, because I know for myself anyhow, that a lot of my thinking is habitual, particularly the
Yes.
negative stuff. If I go to bed and I'm like, oh, wow, what are we going to do about that? Oh, this could this could really go bad. It's like follow that
Yes.
down that rabbit hole. The only thing there is insomnia. I love what you're saying about because it's something specific, measurable that can be done and answers the question of how. And that is to flip the script and start asking yourself questions about it rather than following that negative thought process. Like you're saying, like, what am I going to do? I just lost my job and I don't want to go back into that kind of work. People say I'm too old and I don't want to anyhow. I got this knot in my gut versus what are the lessons to be learned here? What would be some questions someone could ask themselves when they're in that horrible hamster wheel of, we're all going to die. I've lost my job.
One of them is, what is the growth edge that I am experiencing? And what is the growth edge that is available to me? Like, what's the growth on the other side of this? So different ways that people can word that. What's the growth? What's the gift in this? Another one is, what would I do if I wasn't afraid?
I can think of another one. What would I do if I could do anything I wanted to do?
That's another way of saying that, for sure.
Just like getting into those kinds of thoughts instead of the we're all going to die thoughts that can actually lead to inspiration.
That's very true. And that's because the chemistry is different, because cortisol actually shuts down our creative decision making and relationship building. And so when we are having a negative thought, it's much harder, almost impossible, to create new solutions because the part of the brain that creates that is not the one that's in motion.
Thank you so much for this, Lou-Anne. It's just been a pleasure in getting to know you and having you share your wisdom and your experience with all of us. I'm certain if there are people out there who will take to heart some of your wisdom, that it's going to make a big difference for people.
I hope so. I hope it is helpful. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share. And thank you for your work that you're doing through this podcast.
Thanks for spending time with us on It's the Never Too Late Show. Like, subscribe, and share the spark, because reinvention's more fun with friends. Not sure what your spark is? Take the quiz at itsthenevertoolateshow.com. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and we'll catch you later. Later.